And I just asked him, look, don't put me in one of those beds or anything, but tell us what this is.
Well, this is a setup brought to us by the Marlboro Volunteers, and it is basically a mini MASH hospital, a clearing hospital. It is typically between World War II and current. In fact, some of the things you will see in here you'll still be used in the Army today.
Okay, can you explain what MASH is?
Mobile Army Surgical Hospital.
And where did it get its fame?
Television show and a movie.
Right, okay. I wanted to make sure we brought that out. Because people, I think a lot of older people remember MASH.
They do.
And they think there's some reruns, too.
If you get to the right channels, I was watching some last night.
Okay, let's move along here. And this is what right here?
This is what we call an emergency room. This would be, in our terminology, this would be triage. The casualties would be brought in here and evaluated by a doctor to determine the next steps in their treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But in a treatment hospital, you'd have 3 or 4 of these tents, and some of the patients would be treated outside before they could be moved to other areas. But a doctor would be here at each table. They'd bring them in on a stretcher, put them on the racks, and the doctor would do a quick evaluation and basically first aid.
Okay, let's move down here, but you can keep pointing these things out to us as we walk.
Okay. And again, all the materials back here are original. They would have been Army vintage. You can see the brown boxes that we're familiar with. The next area down here is your recovery ward.
Okay, let's bypass all these instruments. They remind me too much.
Yeah, that would be in the triage tables here too.
Okay.
This would be your recovery ward. Okay, again, starting in Korea, but if you were to go to Afghanistan right now, that recovery ward would look exactly like this one. The beds are the same, the trays are the same, and as you can remember, the spoons that we used to have that didn't fit in anybody's mouth because they were so big are the same. The shower facility on the back wall is exactly the same that we used. But if you want privacy here, you closed your eyes.
We're going to hurry by this one because we don't want to go to Afghanistan, Emily. Okay. Where are we coming?
The next suite down here, and again, if you ever watched the movie MASH or the television show MASH, this is your surgical suite. This is a Korean vintage surgical suite. The tables were the same, metal tables. You put the stretcher on them and operate. The spacing was exactly the same, and you'd have tents full of these surgical tables.
These instruments again.
Those instruments again are original.
And they kind of give me a shiver. Okay, let's move on to this other one down here.
Okay. If your injury was neck or above, this is your dental surgery or your oral surgery. And again, in Vietnam, the dentist was first time the dentist came to you. So there's a picture of a dentist in a dry rice paddy.
My, they made house calls in Vietnam.
House calls in Vietnam.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to this one now.
Well, again, this is the instruments. And let me turn around here real quick. Instruments for the dental surgery. Basically the same instruments you would see in a dentist's office. You will see one of my earlier dentists, the old-fashioned pump drill that they use, because you didn't often have electricity out there.
My jaw hurts already.
Dr. Scrub Sink or Surgeon Scrub Sink. A surgeon has to scrub between 10 to 15 minutes before he can do a surgery.
Well, you guys are ready for anything here, right? Are you going to do the operating?
No, we've got a medic here that was a medic in Vietnam, worked with the 82nd
Really?
Airborne.
So
He does the presentations.
Yeah, he's kind of on duty here.
Yep. This is our sterilization equipment, autoclaves. Basically, again, if you didn't have electricity, you put them over a fire. But this was before the disposable instruments. So all your instruments had to be sterilized. All your needles had to be sterilized before they could be used again.
Okay.
This is a Korean War vintage blood lab. So the first thing you would come in, particularly if you didn't have your dog tags, was blood typing. And it would be done in a system just like this. This is exactly what they had.
They could analyze it right on the spot.
They could analyze it, tell you what blood type it was. So they could get out of their cooler, and this was a blood cooler heater. They could get out the appropriate blood.
Well, I'll be.
Okay. And blood had to be kept within a certain specified temperature, so this was not only a cooler, it was also a heater. Okay.
And what do we have here?
Well, this is some equipment that we had. I can remember a lot of this. Yeah. You probably remember something like
I
this.
remember those.
Okay. The newer helmets.
Yeah. Why, the old helmets,
Yep.
10 buckets. That's what we had.
But you can also probably remember these. The medic
Yeah,
40.
and they made a good target.
And that's why we didn't wear them in Vietnam, because the Viet Cong were targeting
Yeah.
the medics and the
Oh,
officers.
what a target.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. If I'm going to have a problem doing this job today, this is a place to be, right?
Yeah, this is it.
I'll tell you a little story. I was at McDonald's getting some coffee, and next to me was standing a woman, and she had the chain on with the RN.
Yep.
And I says, "Boy, you're an RN?" She's, "Yes." I says, "Boy, this is a place to have a heart attack." She says, don't bother me, because I'm on my lunch hour."
Off duty.
It's so much for the Hippocratic Oath, you know. Well, thanks again, Colonel.
Okay, you're very welcome.
You're once again a fountain of information.
I wish Ted was here. He was the guy he put this all together. He can
Is
tell
that
the
right?
stories.
Where did you get all this stuff?
Well, Ted collected it. He's part of the Marlboro Volunteers, so he has collected this over the years and takes this tent out to various locations. Now, he's typically here for the summer.
Great. Well, thanks again for your time.
Okay.
Rick Johnston.
Rick John. We're here once again in front of the 25th anniversary at MAPS. And our guest today is Rick Johnson. Rick, what is your claim to fame here? Besides being a brilliant man, he's a PhD. And you know what a PhD does? You tell me what a PhD does.
Well, a lot of times I say PhD actually stands for post-hole digger. But in my case, I'm a materials scientist. I work for Sherwin-Williams, and I work in our analytical lab. So I troubleshoot paint problems. I basically do what you would call CSI for paint.
Oh, okay. Now, you have joined here. How long have you been here?
I joined in September of 1990, so I've been here since nearly the beginning.
Yeah, close to the beginning, right. And you've seen the growth.
Oh yeah, from the time when we had only 2 bays over in what's now the Restoration Building until we've achieved what we've done today.
Okay, what is your job here?
Well, I'm currently a tour guide. I work with the membership group, and I do restoration work. I'm part of a restoration crew that comes in on Wednesday evenings to work. And I'm currently working on the F-101.
And what part of it you working on?
Well, whatever needs to be done. I'm actually doing some cleanup on some A-fasteners for a couple of the cowling panels that go around the afterburners. But I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I do painting, whatever needs to be done.
That's a come down for being a big shot, isn't it? In a paint company?
Not really. I call it airplane therapy.
Airplane therapy, okay.
I come down here, all my problems disappear. It's just so much fun.
Being a retired guy has problems?
Well, I'm not retired yet.
Oh, okay.
I've got about 2 years. I've got about 2 years before I retire.
Oh, you're still working?
I'm still working.
Well, thank you, taxpayers. Well, I was telling my granddaughter Emily that the C-45, I used to have 20 of those.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to thank you, taxpayers. But I want to thank you, taxpayers, also. I bought them pretty cheap. Rick, thanks a lot for being with us. We're going to have to push on here.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my other claims to fame here was I was on the board of directors for 15 years.
Well, great. Keep up the good work.
I will. It's just fun.
Okay, our next victim here is Jim Jackson. He's a director here at MAPS Museum, and we're down at the 25th anniversary, and this is a marvelous place. We're over in the Restoration Building, and Jim is going to be our guide here, and we're going to start with the first airplane here, Jim, and then we'll walk down the line.
Our first airplane was an F-84F that's been under restoration for a number of years. The crew chief on this is a gentleman by the name of Paul Gates. We're getting pretty close. We got a canopy for it just recently. We're just about ready to put the wings on. The tail's been painted. And hopefully we'll have this out of here later on this year, early next year.
Great. We'll move down to the next one now, and that is...
The next one is a historically significant airplane. It's one of the first F-86s. It's an F-86A. This particular airplane won the 1949 Cleveland Air Races up in Cleveland. It then went on to combat in Korea. It saw combat over there, and it came back. It sat for a number of years in New England. Was then taken back by the Air Force down at Dayton, and they gave it to us. It's on loan. We've had it since last year. We started to work on it in October. Quite a bit of work to be done on this, but we're looking forward to restoring it as close as we can back to original shape.
Oh, great. What do we have here? This looks familiar.
This is a BT-13. This is a trainer from World War II.
That's from my era. I was in the Air Corps in World War II.
And that gentleman up there who's working on it is 90 years old. He flew one of these in Texas during World War II, and he doesn't know enough to come down off there. So he takes quite an interest. We've, again, this one we pulled in last fall, and we have pretty well everything from the firewall back, but if anybody has an engine they'd like to give us, we'd be more than happy to take it.
If you'd have talked to you 20 years ago, I had a lot of about 2985s I took off of C-45s. Okay, you remember the what the cadets called this airplane?
The vibrator.
The Vultee vibrator. Right. You're up on your history.
Yeah.
What do we have here?
This is an A-26, not to be confused with a B-26. This has been around for a number of years. It sat here, and again, it's been in here in restoration for, I'm going to say, a year and a half, 2 years probably.
This is the Douglas airplane.
Yeah, not to be confused with the B-26.
And that's the Martin airplane, the B-26.
This is being close. This wing has had a lot of work done on it. The engines are sitting over here. We have two 2800 Pratt & Whitney engines to hang on it. We have a fuselage, one wing. The other wing is out in the boneyard. Lack of space, we'll get it in here, and we're still a couple of years away on this one, though.
And we're coming up on this sweetheart right here.
Yeah, this is our newest acquisition, or on loan. This is an F-16. We went and had to go to Tucson to pick this up earlier on this year, I believe the first part of April. We're really happy to have this, the F-16 in here for the city of Cleveland. And the fellows have just started working on it. They've got it cleaned up, and it's beginning to look pretty good. We've got the wings and the tail out there that we've got to get cleaned up, and we're looking forward to having that on display, hopefully later on in the year, if not again the first next year.
This is an F-16A, isn't it? One of the first?
It is, yeah, it's an F-16.
And one of the unusual things I heard about this airplane was the pilot reclines in it.
He sits at about a 30-35 degree angle.
That's way back.
Yeah,
like that.
and it's almost like the NASCAR cars. If you've ever sat in a NASCAR car, you sit back on an angle.
Not lately.
Oh, well, when you hit something, you don't go forward, you go down, down.
That enables them to withstand the G-force.
An awful lot more, yeah. Another 2 or 3 more G's so that they can stand that way. So.
Okay, Jim, well, thanks a lot for the tour, okay? I don't want to shake your bad hand.
Hard.
Okay, I won't.
Don't let the doctor know I did that.
Okay, well, let's do the left hand.
Right.
Okay, there we go. Well, we're here at the 25th anniversary of MAPS Air Museum, and this is just a surprising, astounding, great place. I can't think of enough adjectives. I've been a member here for many, many years, and every time I come down here, we've done a number of shows, come down here 2 months later, and the place has changed and has grown again. This is one of the hidden jewels in Summit and Stark counties. And right now I'm standing in front of the Gallery of Heroes. And this is a wonderful name. And we're going to take you on a tour through the Gallery of Heroes, the 25th anniversary of the Military Air Preservation Museum on the west side of the Akron-Canton Airport, better known as MAPS. And one of the great destinations, folks, a place to really come and see. Bring the children, it's history that they can touch. Now, we're at the Women's Service exhibition here in the Gallery of Heroes, and the women belong in this Gallery of Heroes. We have them waves and wax from World War II, and just representing every branch of the service. And this lady over here, she had, look at those ribbons she has. She's well, in my time, that would be a tech sergeant. And look at the hash marks. That meant 6 months overseas, each one of these hash marks. And women in the service are getting more and more jobs. They're flying fighter aircraft, transport aircraft, and they are really an asset here in our military services. They've been serving for many, many years in wars, World War I, World War II, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Vietnam, Korea. And I'm running out of wars to name. We're in so many. There's We're walking down through the Gallery of Heroes, and there's a reason for that name, Gallery of Heroes, because families have sponsored displays for family members that were in the wars, mainly World War II. They're pilots, gunners, navigators, bombardiers, and these are pictures donated and memorabilia donated to the museum by the families in honor. Charles O. Kramer Jr., right down the list, we have Clay W. Baker Jr. Here's his uniforms, his winter uniform. He was a pilot on a B-17, model of the airplane he flew. And there's his winter uniform, and there's his summer uniform. And then we move on. So there's quite a display he had a lot of memorabilia here. Letters home, the whole shot. It's his medals. And this is a real tribute in the Gallery of Heroes for a gentleman who flew the bomber, the B-17 bomber, in World War II. And when we move on down, and some of the signs, there's a map used by Mr. Baker, or rather Captain Baker. And here is a gentleman, Colonel Adam Parsons, and he was a friend of mine. I knew this gentleman. He came out of our neighborhood, and he was an all-state wrestler at Garfield High School, an all-state football player. He was an athlete at the University of Akron, and he was a pilot in World War II. And he was the co-pilot on the lead airplane that on D-Day, invasion of Normandy. Colonel Adam Parsons. He was recalled into the military during the Korean War, was shot down in a B-26, broke his back, and he rehabilitated. And when he was serving in the Pentagon, I heard that he would run 20 miles a day. This guy was a physical specimen. But his injuries finally got to him, and he passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. So the family set this whole wall up for Adam. And here's a picture of him right here. Here's a cockpit of the airplanes he flew. Here's his medals. There he is. And he was a nice guy. I knew the man for many years. As I said, he was from our neighborhood. Colonel Adam Parsons. Okay, the display I'm standing in front of is a hallowed area, the Tuskegee Airmen. This was the all-black fighter pilot, bomber pilot bunch that flew in World War II. And like the sign up here says, they never lost a bomber to enemy fighters. They protected the bombers during the war, and at one point, they did such a good job that some of the bombing groups refused to fly unless they were protected by the Tuskegee Airmen groups. And unfortunately, they fought for this country, then they came back, and they had to fight discrimination in this country. That's a sad chapter. And we've got 2 or 3 Tuskegee Airmen outside. And I've met 2 or 3 of them over the years. And these guys were fine gentlemen, great pilots, and brave men. But they had a tough time coming back to the United States. And I'm proud to say that when I had my flying service, I hired the first 3 black pilots in the United States in my commuter airline back in 1959, 1960. So down, make sure you see this great display of the Tuskegee Airmen.